Today I'm going to talk about my awakening experience. Before I do, I want to start with a caveat, though, that my experience can't be yours. Um, One of my senseis, Angelo, said that there's like 8.8 billion people in the world. There's going to be 8.8 billion awakening stories. And that's absolutely true from where I sit. You will never find awakening if you are looking for the picture I paint for you, um, because you'll always be looking at the thought about what I've said instead of what's right in front of you, right there. So, that said, um, my awakening began when I was a kid. Um, I'd had a lovely childhood, kind of, and a rough one, kind of. I can see kind of both sides of everything. The delusion of the happy child, and then the reality of all that was going on. Um, so around six or so, my parents started to kind of split apart and then become more and more lost in their minds. And with that, things became increasingly dark in my house. And then there was a light, kind of, in that the Mormon church had sent missionaries to our house, and they were beginning to convert us to Mormonism and Christianity in general. Um, so this very wholesome, uplifting message kind of came to me right at this dark time of my life. And my father, who was battling an addiction with caffeine and coffee and nicotine and cigarettes, um, he he quit all of those things to baptize me, which was a very strong testimony of faith, um, and that has stuck with me even now. Um, like that kind of trust and intuition in the universe. It was a very, very, very powerful example. So, um, following my baptism, though, I had a near-death experience. Um, and prior to that NDE, I was more aggressive, physically violent, due to the things that were going on. And then following it, while I still had those aggressive tendencies, I became more of a shield than a sword. My personality was very, very different following the NDE than prior. Um, but then, to be honest, after that experience, which I'll describe later more in more detail than right here, um, I kind of forgot all of it. I forgot all of it. And I moved on with my life, and I became rather mind identified. I joined the Marine Corps as a LDS man, serving a mission to God to bring people to the faith. And it was my time in the Marine Corps that actually kind of turned me into an atheist. Um, and then I began an investigation into the nature of religions and spirituality and things, and I'd gone really heavily into all religions, from the Tao to Hinduism to Jewish, Sikhism, like several. Like I took college courses on these things to study them, and ultimately I found that all of them had truth, but none of them were true. None of them had the whole truth. And so I became agnostic, and or Buddhist, depending on who I was talking to. Like if there was a meditation crowd, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm Buddhist," right? And we could resonate from there. But otherwise, I was agnostic. Um, all of this kind of comes to a head, though. I had been in therapy for forever, from the time I got out of the Marine Corps, even currently. Um, and I had been going to school for psychology and social work and trying to figure out myself and learn about myself. Um, um, yeah, really just kind of seeking something, but not really knowing what I'm looking for. Um, Originally, actually, I went to college for electrical engineering design because I was an air traffic control radar tech in the Marine Corps, and so I did that in the Weather Service as a civilian for a while. Um, and it's funny how the language comes right back. But anyway, my mother passed away in 2018 on July 14th, and it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough, and it's actually ironic the timing of that because if she believed in Jewish the Jewish traditions, so she would light a candle right now, actually, or sunset tonight for the eve of her death. It's rather ironic timing, but anyway, she had passed away, and that was the severing of my connection to the world. So I had my twin brother, and that was a loss that I always felt, and my mom kind of helped temper. Um, but no one else in the world seemed to be able to succor that need. And so when my mom died, my connection to the tree that bore me was gone, and my twin fruit was gone. And I was swallowed in by my identity and loss, truly. And I suffered greatly. I met my current therapist now. She's the one that convinced me to look at becoming a therapist myself. She was the second therapist I had been with over the years that recommended this path for me. And so it was upon her advice I had begun investigating psychology and social work. And so uh, while I was beginning my psychology degree, I was also doing ketamine therapy with my therapist and a doctor. Um, and I found great relief in the cell structure there. So if you're really struggling with depression and anxiety and suicidal ideation, there are a lot of studies showing the effectiveness of these things. But again, they're very powerful chemicals. They will alter your the way you receive reality. So please go in with full consent, knowing what it is as best you can, obviously, right? Because it'll be like awakening. No one can tell you what those things will be like before you do them. But it will, again, if you can think of that before going in, then you'll also know that there's nothing I can give you about awakening, that you have to see it for yourself, right? So, anyway, my mother passed away, and everything got dark. And my therapist convinced me to start Adderall. And this was really what got the ball rolling, because the first time I tried it, my mind went still enough that, like, when I hugged my daughter, Haley, it felt like it was the first time I'd ever hugged my second child. It was such a bizarre feeling. I still remember it. It was so bizarre. It was so quiet and still. But it was my only taste of that for almost 11 months. Um, so it's around this time, though, that I'm lost in depression. And I'm trying to find out, who am I? And I turn to astrology. And then that leads to human design. And it was human design which really set me on the path. Because human design had this innovative thing where you listen to your body, not your mind. And so I was like, well, that's stupid, right? Like, how can my body know what to do? Like, that was the thought I had. It was funny. Anyway, so, like, anyway, uh, man, that's funny. Anyway, I actually kind of forgot what I was talking about. That was so funny. But my mom passed. I was looking for stuff. Human design showed me to look at my body. And it was from this, like, looking at my sacral, I realized, oh, this is what the Holy Ghost is. This is what intuition is. This is what the Holy Spirit is. This is what all these things are pointing to, is this, like, sense of knowing innate in you what the path is or isn't. Um, kind kind of. I don't know, like these words aren't going to work. Um, intuition is intuition. How do you give that words? But anyway, um, so following that, I followed my intuition, and that led me to these big releases of energy, that like manic writing of journal entries for days with like little sleep of like, just crazy stuff, man. Truly crazy stuff. And then days of just deep depressions and like, I'm never getting it. I'm never going to be awakened. I'm never, all this stuff, man. Just up and down and up and down and up and down. And then it was in November of 2024, November of 2024, that I was just done. It was around my mom's birthday. And I was just like, I can't do that. Like, what is this? Like, what is this horrible feeling in me? And why won't it ever go away? And then I just looked at it. And I broke and I cried. And it was like my mom was there and she had healed the wound with me that was there since I was young, and then was like reopened when she died. But it was very healing. And then I started thinking, wait, what if I just basically feel what my wife does to me and my dad does to me and my kids and the world, and so I'm just like doing this. I'm thinking like this is some revolutionary breakthrough of like, oh my God, all you have to do is just like, what is this? And like, it's so funny because I hadn't stumbled on awakening yet and seen any videos. I had no idea what was happening, man. So it was just funny. So I'm doing that in the kitchen, and I'm describing to Miranda, my wife, what I'm doing, and then suddenly everything goes quiet. But it's quieter than Adderall even was. It was like a pure quiet, right? It was like this quiet. It was just so quiet. And I remember looking at Randa, and I'm like, why is it so quiet? And she looks at me like, because you stopped talking, dude. And I was like, no, like, I hear the fridge. I don't mean there's no sound. I just mean it's so quiet. And then I started like looking, and I had seen a couple of more you could call fetters from wherever I was. And I was like, oh, there's more to do here. And as soon as I had a thought like that, everything just, and all the noise was back. And I was like, what the hell was that? So following that, I thought I was going crazy. I had met in the next May some people online, and they helped me see that I wasn't crazy. Shout out to Devin Gilliam. And no, sometimes you really do need someone to say, hey man, you're not crazy. So he gave that to me. And then around the same time, I had stumbled into finding Simply Always Awake and Awakening. And so I started like learning about meditations and thoughts and emotions. And I bought Simply Always Awake's book. And I learned at the same time I was going to college in social psychology and like childhood development classes, I was also reading his book. So I was like going through this huge course of like, what is psychology? What are people? What is the mind? What it, like all of it, all at once. It was a very beautiful time. I really enjoyed it. Learning some of my favorite things to do. I kind of wish I could be a full-time student. But yeah. So following all that, yeah, that May in 2025 was big because I had met Devin. I had a few months. Man, the timeline, it's so hard to keep track of it anymore. I'm totally getting it all like jumbled. But anyway, somewhere around the same time, I had stumbled on the meditation videos and the book, and I learned a lot. And then I was trying to understand it for a year. I became addicted to understanding what awakening was. is probably a really human way of saying it. I just needed to understand. And I just kept watching videos and calling and seeking different people to listen to and watch. And just like, why are you not as good as Buddha? Why are you not as good as Jesus? Why am I not awake yet? What's wrong with you teachers that I'm not awake yet? But like there was that, and then like also from like I'm gonna teach this too. So when I do this, right, how can I not be like that? Right? It was such a fun time. Uh, because you're trying to understand, right? Like the best way I could say it is the water in the cup can only know the shape of the cup because the cup holds the water. But if you want to know what the cup is, you have to be the cup. You can't be the water anymore. But the cup contains all of the experience of the water. So, right? But the water isn't real. Like the cup is the nature of you. The water is what you filled it with, in a sense, right? So, like this awakening thing is actually more of like pouring stuff out or dropping away of things than finding something extra, which is funny. So yeah, sorry. I I spent a year seeking, and it was in May. I'd had a lot of psychology presentations in Denver. I was going to get my doctorate in psychology, although I've chosen now to look at addiction therapy. But at the time, I was trying to get all my research credits in and things like that. And so I was doing my presentations, and it was just hard. It was a really hard time. I was like on the verge of breaking, and I was resisting it as hard as I could, as long as I could. And then I finished my presentations. Before I even finished my presentations, too, I had this experience where there was clearly something repressed in my experience, or like this black hole I couldn't touch. And I finally did in early May of 2025. And I remembered my brother. I remembered all of the abuse. I remember everything I went through. And it was enough for me to be like, this isn't real. Awakening isn't real. This is bull crap. Emerson's full of crap. Angela's full of crap. Josh is full of crap. They're all scamming. They're just ripping people off. And I just threw it all away. So it was while I was in Denver at my presentations, my aunt had come, and she was going through this and interested in the process. And that kind of rekindled my spark. So right after that, it was on May 19th, I woke up. And again, I'm like agnostic atheist. And I go into my bathroom and I just crumble to the floor and I break down crying and praying to the universe, like every name that I knew to say. Please help me. In a very heartfelt, like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't do this anymore. And I let go of everything. And then I was, you could say, tempted to come back to life by my favorite lunch, my favorite shows that day. And I just like, no, I don't want any of it. None of it matters. None of this matters, right? Like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. So it's just following this intuition. Watch this video. Okay. Don't eat lunch. Okay. Watch that video. Okay. Sit in silence. Okay. Read this book. Okay. Read the Bible. Okay. Pray again. Okay. Right. Like, just whatever was happening. And then that night I was doing the dissolving duality video. And I had seen, right? It's basically look at what you're looking at and feel your body and note that they overlap. And I'm doing this, and I was like, holy, whoa. Whoa, it's like I can hear the birds on the ball. Is like how my mind was trying to tell me that I saw something, right? And I was like, wait, what? No, okay, no, I can't see a thought about this. I have to like look at that, though. Okay, so, wow, that's weird. Maybe that's what they're pointing to. And I start looking. And I'm like, whoa, and then right around this time, Angela's like, do they overlap? Right? subject and object, do they overlap? And I was like, yeah, of course they do. Why wouldn't they? And I was just overwhelmed with fear, right? And I remembered at that point, because I was ejected into my mind, oh yeah, this is normal. So I'm like, okay. And then with that, there was this huge energy of fear in my chest, but it made it easier to find it, right? So I'm like, okay, I can feel my chest now clearly. And okay, now the ball. And then I just, right? It was like one moment my mind was cross eyed, and the next it wasn't. The relief was so strong, I cried. And I cried. My wife and my oldest daughter, Elmira, held me. And then I went inside. And it was here I saw my other daughter, Haley. And like I had hugged her. This is for the first time ever. She was sitting in the same chair, too. I looked over and I was just overwhelmed with love to the point that it hurt. And I felt nauseated and I was trying to run. And so I look and I still feel the love looking at the wall. And I look at the stairs. I still feel the love looking at the stairs. And I panic. And I close my eyes and I still feel it. And now I'm really freaking out because I can't get away from it. And I try to do something in my mind. And then the feeling goes away. And I'm like, and as soon as I relax, whatever I did fell away. And the feeling came flooding back in again, right? And I can't even do that anymore. Whatever I'd done that day to kind of mitigate the experience, it's gone now, right? But it was still in the vestiges of falling away then, right? I imagine I could have thought I could have tried to stop it. I don't know, man. But I did try and it didn't work. So at some point I was like, okay, I have to let go of this. I have to surrender. And so I did. And then I don't have words for this part. So I'm going to try. It was very psychedelic. Suddenly I was where I was in my NDE. And in my NDE, I thought I talked to God. And he basically was like, hey, if you go back, it's going to be really hard. But you don't have to go back. You can just be done. And like, I remember like, no, I'm going to do it, right? And so what's weird is this me was like watching 8-year-old me in the NDE talk to some kind of future perfected version of me. But I was all of it, all at the same time, and everything in between all of it. It was like I was every experience of myself all at once. I was so whole. Whole isn't even a word. I don't even know. It was so bizarre. But I remember looking up and I just said, thank you, Yeshua. And then I felt a presence at my feet, wash my feet, and I broke. I broke. I crumpled. My whole family came and held me for the longest time, right? And that was my Kensho experience. And actually, I'm curious if you've had some kind of like Christ-like washing of your feet experience, or an experience where you felt like confirmed and given a name from the universe. I'm actually really interested to hear those kinds of things because I've had a couple of those experiences post Kensho, but I haven't found people discussing them. But anyway, following Kensho comes work on, basically what you do in therapy, reactance and desire work, right? Your addictions and your ill will and things. But that's another video for another time. The next shift I had was a year after all of that, was on May 18th, when my father had told me he was getting remarried after 8 years. And I was overwhelmed with an abandonment fear and happiness from at the same time. And it was very conflicting. And so I had this deep desire to hurt him because I was afraid of being abandoned. And then, like, this deep joy, right? Like, it's so bizarre. And so it was like I was being tempted with these fears. And so I had turned to the fear itself and basically said, okay, what if this is real? And suddenly I was like in a place where my dad was like, I don't care that tomorrow's your half birthday. I don't ever want to eat lunch with you ever again. ever. In fact, now that I have Lynette, I don't need you, right? I don't. I have her now, and I have no use for a son like you. And like, it was like brutal stuff. I'm telling you, brutal stuff. And like, it broke me. I'm like sobbing so hard that neighbor kids were running over, like, "Is this guy okay?" And my wife's like, "Yeah, it's his dad's getting married," right? Like, but I had just looked at my dad. I said, "Okay, Dad, I'm happy that you're happy, and I'm glad that I contributed, right? I'm so glad that you found what you've been looking for, even if it means that I lose you, right?" And it was in this like letting go of that, that something broke in me, some kind of need to do things broke. And that was what I identified now as like the weakening of the fourth and fifth fetters of desire and will, right? Because I still have reactivity. I'm still dealing with, um, extreme. I mean, the wedding itself was this Saturday, and it was a rough day, up and down, but it was beautiful, right? Um, but that's equanimity. It's you can have a horribly painful day and a horribly beautiful day in the same day and be at peace with it, right? So it's interesting. Um, but that's like, yeah, it's like a maturity that comes right with the reactivity, is being able to just see it for what it is and then just address it with a matter of factness, and then from there, I guess on top, right? But I'm not there yet. So anyway, this has been my awakening journey. From here, things are just kind of clarifying and deepening at a pretty quick pace from here. Um, People used to Dharma joust me are now coming to me for answers and questions and things like that. And so it's very interesting that the more I let go, the more that what I was trying to make happen is just happening automatically, right? So it's just funny. All of the effort slows things down, and then this like release makes everything kind of outpour and come to life. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. Um, I will do my best to respond to any kind of communications, emails, comments, etc. And I am looking to work with people who are interested in working with someone who's been on this journey one on one. I'm also likely going to build groups of people to do like kind of group settings, but I'm looking to do more intimate, 1 to 3 to 5 people who kind of resonate together really well, and kind of make little cohorts and small support groups. I think is kind of what I found for myself, and I really enjoyed that. So I'll probably propagate that, and those who are interested are looking for more smaller little things, and then I'll also do larger things too. But anyway, stick around, I guess, if this video was helpful or if you really liked it or whatever, and glad to help in any way I can. And thank you again, and hope you have a wonderful day.